Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today for another God video. Last time we spoke on one of the members of the Elven Pantheon, but there is a second member who has a full write-up to examine. So let's take a look at Findeladlara. Let me try again. Findeladlara, the Guiding Hand, the Elven Deity of Twilight, traditional art, and architecture. But first, let's look at where you can find the information on our Elven example yourself. First, you can find bits and pieces in the usual places, the Gods and Magic book, the Divine Mystery book, but the only place where you'll find a full write-up of the Elven deity is in the third book of the Gatewalker's Adventure Path, titled Sleepers of the Nameless Spires. Outside of that, not much, just the usual bits of information you would find in plain adventures for their realm. Outside of that, slim pickings, unfortunately, but we still have plenty. So let's get to the actual beginning. When Northfall hit, there were two groups of elves. Those that returned to the homeworld of Sivrian and those who stayed on Golarion. While Findeladlara maintained many worshippers on Sivrian, there were those who stayed behind, trying to protect and endure, who fascinated her, especially with those who headed north to the crown of the world to try to build a world there in the desolate wastes. Even with the elves returned, her faith is minor outside of the Elven Pantheon and also self the crown, but among the Iverani, a goddess of preservation still is worshipped strongly. Findeladlara, it's easier if I just rush through it without thinking. Findeladlara usually appears as an elven woman, though it depends where her worship is, whether they see her hair bleached white or whether she is depicted in the colors of the twilight. She is often seen wielding a staff, not one of a spellcaster, but one an architect can use for precise measurements. Findeladlara is a protector and perfecter of the 6 true forms of art. True, there is artistry in theater or cooking, but Findeladlara leaves dominions of those forms of art to other deities. Her purview rests simply in the creation and preservation of architecture, craft, drawing, painting, fashion, and sculpting. Which brings us to our first side tangent, the part of the show where we connect the real world with tabletop traditions. Apparently I'm tripping over my words there. Anyway, so what are the arts? Well, that's a bit hard to narrow down. In general, it is a practice of human expression and culture, but what is an art and what not changes a bit through the eras. Scholarship usually lists 7, those being painting, sculpting, architecture, music, literature, theater, and film. Though looking at legal definitions of what is art, it has been ruled that video games fall under the definition for free speech protections. Alternatively, art is divided into 3 groups: literary arts for the written word, performance art for something that takes place in a moment in time, and visual arts for those which are made to last, even after the creator is long gone. With connecting back to today's main topic, all of Findeladlara's arts are the visual art kind, though again, the performance art is recognized if not in her purview. There are many who look at both Findeladlara's preference for her 6 main arts, especially with elven designs, and think that it is exclusive. However, she and her faith are not for discouragement of other arts and railing against innovation, but instead the preservation of the arts that have come before. Her followers master the old techniques so that they can be taught perfectly to the next generation. Likewise, since Earthfall, she has instructed her followers to greet others with open arms. Remember the times that they and their people needed a helping hand, and to now be that person for others. The priests of the Guiding Hand take the name of curators, and take it upon themselves to pass on the knowledge of the past to the future, so that it is never lost. They teach and have their own students go off to open their own schools to teach anew. There is no hierarchy in the church except for reputation one gains through their own mastery of the traditional arts. But regardless of their reputation, each of them carry a staff like their god, a symbol of their commitment to the arts. Which brings us to a second side tangent, the Twilight Speakers. One tradition of the Guiding Hand's faith is to go on a pilgrimage, walking the earth and creating artwork for those outside the community, with only art as their guides. Twilight Speakers are the ultimate compilation of this, serving as diplomats for the Ivorani among short-lived ancestries. Taking on their gods' aspects of preservation, they have existed since Earthfall, when elves helped shield others from the catastrophe. They continue the tradition, looking to protect people and traditions, though usually fighting against modern fads. Considering one of her purviews is architecture, you can imagine the beauty of her holy buildings, serving as much as museums as places of worship. The temples are designed to hold artwork from across the masters of all 6 arts. Even the buildings themselves are made through the mastery of working with stone, still living trees, crystals, and, in the crown of the world, ice. Findeladlara, like all elven deities, has her realm as part of Alarion in Elysium, her specific realm being the Horizon Heart. This realm is the horizon itself, and those who are not allowed in were never near it. Those that arrive, however, see a land of crystal palaces, with each building being a perfect example of Findeladlara's teachings, veiled with art that does pretty much the same. Now for some miscellaneous piece of information. As mentioned, the faith in the Guiding Hand is limited, mostly just found in the crown of the world, but also noticeable respect in the Moragnia, with though still as part of the Elven Pantheon there. Holiday-wise, at the end of each month are Hearthfests, which celebrate the art of the community. In the crown of the world, however, the Ivorani have 3 other holidays. Eblight at the autumn equinox, when the sun dips below the horizon for the winter. Dawn March on the vernal equinox, where the sun returns. And the day of the midnight sun at the summer equinox, which the name kind of explains itself. Likewise, the faith has 3 holy books. The Pattern Essential, which are 36 images of perfect examples of Findeladlara's art. The Model Illumina, a collection of commentary on these 36 pieces. And finally, the Enchiridion Vital, which is the worshipper's own sketchbook. These 3 books collectively are known as the Grand Canvas. Which, well, we're on the topic of art, let's go into side tangent 3 with an item and an appearance from hello, long time no see. I'm the Laughing Salesman, here to talk to you about id portraits. These are minor artifacts made by a master artist and spellcaster both. They are portraits which can draw in the subject and replace them with a doppelganger who was made of pain. They are most famous for being used by serial killer Imran Goldfollow to kill artists, critics, and patrons of the art when he felt wronged, but a nice artistic flair to any home is always welcome if you do not mind keeping some skeletons on your walls. Finally, on to relationships. First, we are getting to the point where we have no information on divine heralds or other close allies, so we just have other gods today. Of course, the entire Elven Pantheon gets along well together, with both Desna and Elsata brought in on the camaraderies despite not being elves themselves. In particular, the recently risen demon is also close to the Guiding Hand's faith, since she has embraced artistry. And the older faith is more than happy to support the newer. With the overlap in arts, Shaylin is also an ally, though, again, Findeladlara prefers a limited scope instead of all of beauty. There is a little tension with the faith of Serenray, her faith being seen as too inflexible, not able to enjoy the twilight, both literally and metaphorically, of course. Finally, the smaller faith in the Miragni has gotten close with the old sun gods of Mosley, and the Elven faith has especially gotten close with Luhar, the setting sun, and Tlelhar, the rising sun. Which, while we are here, one last side tangent. We have spoken on 2 of the 3 Elven deities, but one does not yet have a full write-up. So until the day we do, let us have this side tangent suffice. Yulral is the Elven goddess of magic, as well as crystals and jewelry. Patron of both divine and arcane magic, she prefers that which walks with nature than anything artificial or metal. In Elven art, she always appears as an elven woman dressed simply and surrounded by aeon stones. She prefers crystals uncut and natural, and is the elven deity most willing to celebrate Ayuvarin, or half elves. Which brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you liked our little side tangent about elves. Next time, we are moving back to Starfinder territory, so I hope all of you look forward to seeing that next time.